another 1 or 2. I will give another 1 or 2 minutes for others to join, but in the meantime, any questions or doubts from the last session? All right. Yep. If there's no question, then let's continue. So just to recap, in the last session, we were trying to understand on running a Jenkins job, you need 3 important things. That is where to run, which you can tell a particular machine or a group of machine. If not, Jenkins will take up the master machine. So that's how you tell where to run. And then you need to tell what to run. So that is where the task that Jenkins will be running, wherein we just saw how do you give a simple command to run. Now that could be a command or a script depending on us. But if you're going to connect to a Linux box, then we saw we need to use an option called, okay, let me just show you. So under the build step, you're going to tell what is the exact task you want to run. And if the machine that you're going to connect and run is a Linux machine, then you're going to use the step called execute shell. The same, if you want to run some command or a script on a Windows box, then you're going to choose a different step called execute Windows bash. Now this is where you tell what exactly you want to run. And finally, when to run. So there are different options that you have, but if you do not tell anything, and if you want to run the job on your need basis, then you're going to ideally say by clicking on this build now. So whenever you click on this build now, the Jenkins will execute the job by connecting to whatever the machine you have configured, and then it will run the task. And in that, we also saw whenever Jenkins connects to a machine, so it goes to the remote root directory of the machine, and inside that only all the steps, whatever you have given, will be executed. But once again, it will not be directly in the remote root directory, but in the remote root directory, it will create a folder with the name of the job, and under that, it will be executing all the commands. Okay. So this is the basics what we have learned. Now, to go a little deeper on this, now what if you want this job to be executed automatically over a period of time? Okay. So what I'm saying is, whenever I want, I can click this build now, and Jenkins will be executing this job at that time. But what if you have some automation, or you want to run some job every 1 hour or every 4 hours or every day, or let's say every Monday and Tuesday of the week, or you have a particular schedule in which the job should be repeated again and again. So this is where in the beginning I was telling you Jenkins acts as a replacement for cron. So you don't need a separate server. So you can tell Jenkins on what is the schedule you need to run. So based on the schedule, Jenkins can automatically trigger this job. So that's where there are different ways to invoke the job. One, you can tell when you want to run explicitly. If not, you can specify a schedule based on that Jenkins can run. Okay. Now, how so when I say a schedule, this is where if you go to build trigger, you have a lot of other options which we will see. Now, the important one that what we need is build periodically. Okay. So when you click on this build periodically, it gives you an option which is exactly similar to a cron. Okay. So when you want Jenkins to run this job on a periodic basis, then similar to your cron tab entry, you are going to give 5 values. Okay. Now, what are those 5 values? So if you take a cron tab, there are 5 minimum values separated by space that you will give. And it's the same format Jenkins will also be using. So that is, first, you're going to give minutes, followed by the hour, and followed by the day of month, and followed by month of year, and then the last column that you're going to give is the day of the week. Okay. So this is the combination of 5 values using which you can tell a cron or Jenkins on how frequently you want to run this job. And when you take this, all the values for this will be in numbers. Okay. And it will be in a 24-hour format. So that way, the value for minutes will vary from 0 to 59. Okay. Wherein the 60th minute is what 0 indicates. So if you want to choose a value, you will be giving anywhere between 0 to 59. Same way, if you are giving hours, then hour will be in 24-hour format. So you're going to once again give it in 0 to 23. Okay. Same way, when you take day of the month, so again, this is a number and it ranges from 1 to 31. Okay. So that's what the day you are going to tell. And the month of the year, once again, that will be in number. So it will be a value of 1 to 12, where 1 stands for Jan and this number stands for 12. And then the day of the week, which is the weekday or weekend, then it starts from 0 to 6, where 0 represents Sunday, 1 represents Monday, and in that way, 5 is Friday and 6 is Saturday. Okay. So with the combination of all these 5 values, you can tell when your job should be triggered automatically. So whenever the schedule matches, Jenkins will go ahead and run the job. Okay. But how are you going to give multiple range of values? That is what you need to see, which is again same way like how you give in cron tab. So for example, let's say a time is now 9:12. Now I want to run this at 9:15 today. Then minute will be 15, a space, and then hour is 9 o'clock, space, and then what is the day of the month? So today is August 25th. Oh, sorry, 26th. So you can just make it as 26th. And which month? August. So this is 8. Okay. And what day is today? Today is Thursday. So pretty much it is 4. So now When you give this as an entry to Jenkins to schedule, whenever the calendar matches August 26th, exactly at 9:15, it will go ahead and execute the job. Okay. But you're not going to use this to run once. Like I said, you might be interested to run it very frequently, like at least once in a day or once in a week. Then how do you make it to run against multiple values? So this is where what you can do when you're trying to give this, you can give a single value, or you can also give multiple values separated by comma. Okay. For example, if I want my job to run at 9:15 and 9:30, then over here I can just give a comma. So what will this do? So exactly Jenkins will run today at 9:15 once and then at 9:30. Okay. Same way. What if I want to run it today at 9 o'clock, that is 9:15, 9:30, as well as I want to run this once at, let's assume 11:15 and 11:30. Then I can give a comma. So this is how Jenkins will run this job 4 times today. One at 9:15, 9:30, and then 11:15, 11:30. Okay. So this is how you can have multiple values. Okay. But what if, let's assume I want the job to run for 3 days. Okay. That is, I want to run the job today, tomorrow, and day after tomorrow. Then I can give 3 values. That is 26, 27, 28. Okay. So I can give 3 values like this. Okay. But what if the same requirement I will say is, assume I want to run it on 26, 27, 28, and I need to run this every hour at 15th minute and 30th minute between 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock. Okay. Then either you can say 9 comma 10 comma 11 comma 12. Okay. Instead of that, you can actually give a range of values. So when you're trying to give a range, you can simply say a hyphen in this way. So what will happen now? Every hour from 9 to 12 on 26, 27, and 28, every first 15 minutes and then 30th minute, the job will be getting executed. So this is how you can give multiple values using comma, or you can give a range of values so that anything that matches within the range, it will be executing. Okay. But if I run this, it will not run any other day other than today. Okay, what I'm trying to tell, if I run this, it will run only today. It will not run tomorrow or on 28th. Anyone can guess why it won't run? The time is okay. The hour is okay. The day is okay. Okay, the month is okay. But do you see there is any problem here on the day of the week?
Yeah, day of the week you are specifying it's only on Thursday.
Exactly. So it is only Thursday. Suppose if I want to run it again on 27th, then what should be that? It should be 4, 5, 6. So only if I give like this, it will run, or simply I should say 4, or 4-6, and this should be running anyway from Thursday to Saturday, let it run. Okay. So this is how you can give a range. But same, let's assume I'm trying to tell, run it from 21st to 28th. Okay. Then what will happen? Then, regardless of whether it is a weekday or a weekend, I want to run from 21st to 28th. Then here, I need to give exactly like this. So this is where, when you're trying to give a range, which is almost all the possible values that you have, then what you can do is, instead of putting up this completely, you can simply give a star. Okay, so for example, now if I say like this, so what is the meaning? Regardless of which day, whether it is weekday or weekend, on August 21st to 28th, exactly at 9:15 and 9:30, I want to run this job. Okay, so that is how you match this. Now, what if I tell you the same way? I want this to run every day on August at 9:15 and 9:30. Then you need to match all the values of the days. Then simply give a star here. So what will this happen? Every day of August, exactly at 9:15 and 9:30, it will run. Okay. Now the same way, I want it to run every day, regardless of the month. Every day at 9 o'clock, 15 minute and 30th minute, I need to run. Then I can remove this and I can say a star. So every day, every month, you are going to run. And what if I say star here? It is going to run every day, every hour, exactly at 15th minute and 30th minute. That means this job will run daily every 15 minutes. That is the first 15 minute and then 30th second. Now, what if I say star here? Then it is going to run every single minute. Okay, so every minute, every hour, every day, this job is going to be triggered. But what if I say I want to run this every 5 minutes? I don't want to run every minute, every 5 minutes. Then what you're going to do is you're not going to use a comma separated value, because if I say every 5 minutes, then I have to say 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 until 60 I have to give. Instead of that, you can just say star divided by 5. So that way, star indicates all the value. What is divisible by 5? Only the 5 series. So that way, this job will run every 5 minutes. So this is how you can choose on what is the time in which the job should be executed. Okay. Now just to show you, let's put 1 minute and see how it works. So the same value, whatever you're giving, is what you're going to put it here. Okay. So let me just zoom it. So you have to give 5 values separated by space, which indicates minute, hour, day of the month of the year, and the day of the week. So now if I schedule it and apply, then from the time that you have applied, every 1 minute, the job should get triggered automatically. But again, remember, it is not going to take your clock. It is going to take the time on the master. So when I say every 1 minute, based on the master's time, every 1 minute it is going to run. Okay, so there's going to be some small difference. So don't expect that if I schedule it to run at 9:15, it is not on my time. It should be on the master's time. Okay, so let's wait for a couple of seconds. You should see that you should have a 6th job executed. Getting it? Any questions on this cron tab entry?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah.
So if we were in last week of December, here we are not mentioning any year, right? So I wanted to run the next week, maybe in Jan. Let's suppose we are there in last week of December, and I wanted to schedule this in next year, Jan. So then here we can give like day of the month as 1 and a month of the year as 1.
Yes.
It will schedule on 1st Jan, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So the next immediate time when it matches, it will go. So as you said, after a couple of days when the new year comes, That's when the calendar will match. So it will go ahead and take it.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So if you see now, it triggered 2 times, right? Because every 1 minute it is trying to run this job. So like this, suppose if you are trying to run a nightly job or some other job at a frequency of 4 hours or 6 hours or once in a day, depending on the schedule what you have given, Jenkins will be able to run this. Got it? However, if you don't do anything, Jenkins will be running at a schedule. But you always have the flexibility where now I don't want to wait for the next time to match and run. Then immediately I can go ahead and click on this. And at that time, it will go ahead and schedule a build. Okay, so that's how if you have given a schedule, it will run against that time matching, or on your need basis, when you say execute, it will run it immediately. Got it? Yeah, quickly, can you just try to set it once and see how it is running? So go to your job and try to add build triggers in that select build periodically. For now, just give it as 5 stars separated by space and then run, so that at least you should see quickly every 1 minute it will be running. Yep, good if you have tried. Others, quickly try it once and see. Okay, cool. If you have completed. Okay, fine. It's just a concept to understand. Now, how do you tell the job to run frequently? Okay, so that's depending on build periodically. Now let's come back to another concept. So when you run a job, what happens? There is no interaction between you or the job. So whether you are scheduling it or basically when you say build now, what it is doing, it will immediately connect to the machine and it will execute the task what you have given. But what if you want to have an interactive way to tell something to Jenkins? Like what you want to tell. Now, assume when you are running Jenkins, what if Jenkins has to read some value from the user? So that's what we call it as parameters. Now, just like when you have a program or a script, you pass some parameters to it, right? So the script will take that as an input, and based on that, it will execute. In the same way, we can also achieve in Jenkins. Because if you just run Jenkins, it will run whatever the value is hard coded. But what we can do now, we can tell Jenkins to get some value from the user, or what we call it as parameters. And based on the parameters, what values do you want to set and how to run the job. So you can define. Okay. Now to understand it in a very simple way, if you go back to the job, I'm just trying to print my name, correct? What if instead of printing my name, I want user to pass some value that Jenkins should capture as a parameter, and then we should substitute it here. Okay. So if you have such a requirement where instead of hard coding, you want Jenkins to give you an option to input some value or parameter, then you should go to general section. And in the general section, there is an option called project is parameterized. Okay. Now, when you click on project is parameterized, what will happen? Jenkins gives the ability to this job to read some user input as parameter. And there are different types of parameters that you can use. Now let me show you a couple of them. Now if you choose string parameter, you can see it is asking you what is the name of the string parameter that you want user to get the value. Okay, so here for example, I'll say my name. Okay, and give a description. Please enter your name. Okay, so I'm just going to do apply. Now without doing anything, let's go back to the job and just refresh it once. You should see a difference. It was showing you build now, but now it is trying to show you build with parameters. So the meaning of that is, if you click this, instead of building the job or running the job, it will take you to a new page where it is asking that this job requires some parameters from the user. So which is where the name, what you gave, and the description. So whatever the value that you type in, Jenkins will be able to read it. So this is how you create parameters first, and then you ask the user to take it up. Okay. However, when a user doesn't give a value, then you can also set this box with the default value, which is where in the description, if you see here, there is a default value, then I can set. And now if you apply and refresh, so you can see when you click on this, it will show you the default value. So this is how a user can use the default value and run the job, or you can change it and then run the job. So it's completely up to us. So what we did is, how do we set a parameter of the type string parameter wherein a user can enter some value? But what is the purpose of capturing this? We need to use it somewhere, because for me, whatever the user is passing, this value has to be substituted over here. Okay, so how do you do that? Now that is where what we need to know is, when Jenkins is capturing some parameter from a user, all these parameters will be stored as variable or environment variable. So if you want to retrieve the value, if you retrieve the value from the variable name or the parameter name, then you will be able to obtain the value that has been substituted. So this is where, if it is Linux, if you want to get back a value from a variable, then simply you will say dollar and the, I'm sorry, something else is coming. Okay, so you can simply say dollar and the variable name. Okay, Now, if you are using Windows, then you should be saying percentage, the variable name percentage. So what will happen? Whatever Jenkins is reading here, it will store it as a variable, or the parameter name will be stored as a variable. And internally, if you want to retrieve, you can simply go ahead and replace it by the variable. So now I can construct my own command. So whatever command or infice, you can also run some script, whatever it is. So you can take the values from the user and you can substitute. Okay. So now watch this. Since I'm using Linux, I'm just going to say dollar and the parameter name. So this should be exactly the name what you have given earlier to capture. And now let me save. And here, if I refresh, so if I replace this with students and run this, so it's executing. And now just click on this and you should be able to see that this has been replaced with the value what you have passed. And anytime for this job, this execution, if you want to know exactly what and all parameters has been passed, then on the left hand side, you can see parameters. And this will clearly show you, this is the parameter that the job asked the user, and this is the value which the user has passed. Okay. So this is how you can ask Jenkins to take a parameter, as well as you can pass and you can substitute. Okay. Now like this, there are different types of parameters. So now what we take is the string parameter. Suppose if you have a string value that the user should pass. Same way, let's assume that I will take another parameter called choice parameter. A choice parameter is nothing but multiple values that you want to give. Now let's say I'll call it as you know, we will put a choice. Let's call it as second name. Okay, I'm just giving the name for the parameter is s name, which represents second name, and I'll give the choice here as okay, and then we'll just give description. Please choose your last name. Now, whatever the user which is going to be passing the value will be stored in it, and this I can retrieve at any point of time as a variable. So if I come down, now for example here I can just say print this $s name. Okay, so now see what happens. I'll go back after saving and refresh. And now if you choose parameter, you should see there are two parameters. One is string and the other one is a choice parameter. Okay, so I can choose a value and then I submit. So these two parameters will be passed as a variable. And if you go to this job, and now you can see the first one was Adam and the second value was Yum. And the parameters are also this. So this is where we need to know what parameter that we want to pass. Okay, and based on that, you can set up a default value, and Jenkins will be storing the name of the parameter as a variable. So you can choose what type parameter and where to use. Now, let me show you another one. Suppose if you want some true or false condition to be set, then you can go ahead and use Boolean parameter. Okay. Now, when I say Boolean parameter, it is going to be either true or false. Okay. Now, let's say here the parameter name, I can give it as, okay, so what should I give? True or false, right? So let's say value Okay, let's say b value is just a parameter name and description, and say choose true or false. Okay, now if I take this b value and let's put it to build, b value equal to $b value. Now in this, if you go back and see, I have not set any default value. Okay, so that means by default this will be false. To see that, if I come back, refresh this, click on build with parameter, you can see that there is a choice wherein by default it is not enabled. But anyway, I'll show you. If I click on this enable and then I run, so the value of this parameter will be true. If this box is not ticked, then the value of this parameter will be false. You see that? Now, since that box was enabled or the Boolean parameter was enabled, you can see the value is true. The same. If I leave it as it is without checking this box, then the value of that parameter will be false. Okay, so this is how when you're running the job, you can choose if you want something specifically to run or to enable. How do you set the condition? So you can try to take the value like a Boolean parameter, and based on that you can set some conditions inside your job when it is calling. Okay, now if I want to set it as default true, then you can just give it and then apply. And now when you refresh, so you should see that whenever you take this job, so by default here it will be true. Okay, so this is how for Jenkins job you can give different parameters which can be prefilled with some default value, and based on what you give, Jenkins will be able to store it as a parameter, and then you need to use it as a variable, and then under the build step you substitute it wherever you want, because I can run now a OS command directly or a script and I can replace this value. So based on that, Jenkins will be calling everything. Okay. So can you just quickly try running this? Okay, let's wait for others to complete. Has everyone tried? Okay, cool. Okay, so what we saw now was for a job, how do you give a parameter and how can you use that parameter to run some commands or steps inside your build step. Okay. Now, in Jenkins, there will be scenarios where you want to set up some dependency between two jobs. Okay. So this is where, now let's assume there is one job already available. Now let's say there is one more job. Okay. Um, Does this go away? Okay, this better. Yeah. So let's say there is a job here. Okay. Now, let me create another job quickly. New item. And let's say we call this as second job. Okay. Now I'll also make this as a freestyle job. Okay, so here I'll tell once again, I want this job to be executed in a particular group. So I'll use the same demo group that we have created. And then under build, I'll just give a simple execute shell and I'll just say here, echo calling second job. Okay. Now, here, if you see, the option that you have now is this job can be triggered only if you come here and click on build now, because you have not scheduled it. So the only possibility for this to run is you're going to say build now. So if I say build now, depending on which machine you have given and what task it has to run, it will connect to that machine and it will go to the remote root directory and create a folder with the name of the job, and inside that it will be running. Okay. Now this is the expected behavior. But what I'm trying to say now is, in Jenkins, when you are trying to do some automation, you want one job to call another job. Okay. So that way, now I want first job to call second job. Okay. Now, when do you want to call? So that is where, if you want to call the second job from first job, after completing the first job, then we call it as a downstream dependency. Okay, downstream. So what do you mean by stream? A flow. Downstream means you complete something first and then go to the bottom one. So that way, you can have a job here, and let's say this is my first job. Now, once the first job is completed, after completing the first job execution, we can ask the first job to call. Okay, so such a kind of dependency where a job completes its execution and then it is going to invoke another job is what we call it as downstream dependency. Okay. So when I set a downstream dependency, you need to tell what job you want to run, but when do you want to run? Because there is a condition that you have to give. So what do you mean by condition? So when you run this job might complete successfully, or there could be a problem in this job execution. So at which scenario or a condition do you want to call this second job? So that's where, whenever you are setting up a downstream dependency, you need to tell Jenkins a condition based on which, if it is matching, it will call. That is, the condition is either when the first job has completed successfully, call this job, or first job failed to execute, then you call the second job. So this is how you can specify the condition and what it has to run. All right. Now the same way here to do this. Now whatever the first job is going to do, that you will specify it here. So when I say after completing its execution, that means after completing whatever the steps you have given here, it needs to trigger, and that is where you will be using post build action. Now in Jenkins, there are plenty of tasks that you can do after completing your main task. Now in this, the important thing that I'm trying to show you is how do you invoke another job. So for that, go to post build action and click on this, and you should see build other projects. So if you click on this, it will show you an option on what is the name of the job. So I can just say second job, And you can see it is giving you option, that is only if this build execution of the job is stable or unstable, or if it is continuously failing. So the meaning is, when this job is always successful, then the status of the job will be stable. If the job fails for the first time, then the status of this will be unstable. Suppose if it is continuously failing back to back for all the execution, then the status will be marked as failed. So on which scenario do you want this first job to call the second job? So that is where we are trying to tell, trigger this only when your first job gets executed and it is successfully executed the steps whatever you have given. Okay, so now watch that. Apply. Now as soon as I apply, if you go back to the first job and refresh, you should be seeing that the first job has a downstream dependency of second job. Okay, so now whenever I run my first job, and if that execution is successful, then it will go ahead and invoke second job. And if it fails, then second job will not be called. So watch this now. I'll run. Let's not worry about the value. So if you see here, the 17th execution happened. And if you go into it, when this has successfully completed, at the end, it will trigger this downstream job, which is second job. So now if you go back to second job and refresh, you should see there is a second execution. And if you click on this, it will clearly tell you who triggered it. So this was triggered from first job, which is build number 17. So this is how you can complete one job and that job can call another job immediately. Okay, so such a kind of dependency is what we call it as downstream dependency. Now, when we are trying to set up some automation like CI job or a nightly job or some deployment, if whatever you are running is failing, if you want to do some post action, like you want to raise a Jira ticket, or you want to send an email, or you want to update some logs, then you can set up a job as a downstream. And when you want to trigger, whether it is on a success condition or a fail condition, you can tell. Now, just to show you the difference, what I'll do, in the first job, I will just add one command at the end called exit1, so that I'm forcibly marking this job execution as failed, because whenever the Linux OS or the Linux shell receives a non-zero status code, then it's considered as an error. So Jenkins will also think the same. The last written code of the step, if it is non-zero, then it considers as failure. So now when it is failure, it will not trigger second job, because the condition what we have given is only when it is stable, not when it is failing. Okay, so watch this. Okay, so here it's clearly indicating that this execution failed. And if you go inside, you should see at the end, the second job is not triggered because this failed. Same way, if you go back to second job, you should not see third execution. There should be only two executions. Okay, so this is how, only when based on my condition, if this job is successful, it should get executed. So the same way, if I set the condition as failed, then only when it fails, the downstream job will be called. So you can choose the dependency, and then based on the condition, Jenkins will call. Now let me run it again. So this time it ran successfully. So you should see that the second job has been invoked. And if we come and refresh, you can see there's a third execution which is obtained by build 19 of first job. Okay, so this is what we call it as downstream dependency. And in fact, you can also have multiple jobs triggered. So you can just give a comma separated values and Jenkins will trigger all these jobs based on the condition what you have given. Okay. Can you quickly go and try this and see how based on the dependency it works? Done. Okay, Kodri, you're super fast. Yeah, let's give some time for others. Everyone tried it once? Is anyone else trying, or has everyone tried it once? Okay. So right. So what we saw now is how do you create a downstream job so that once the parent job completes, how it will be able to call another job. Okay. But what happens, let's assume if I go to my second job, okay, and my second job also has some parameters. Okay. So for example, let's go to second job. I'll configure it. And let me add some parameters. Okay. And for an example, let's just take string parameter. Okay. And here, let's just put some value. Okay. So once again, here, if I say day, okay, I don't have any meaning for that, but I'm just saying what day to enter. And I'll just make it as Thursday. So I'll say enter the day. And if you want this to be obtained at the end, and I'll just say echo day equal to $3. Okay. Now what happens in this? Every time, if I'm running this job, if I pass some value, then that value will be taken. But if I do not pass some value and click on build, then what will happen? It will take the same. So now if I go to the first job and I run first job, and for the first job, I am passing some parameters and I'm going to build it. Okay. So what will happen? Now, first job will take the parameter and first job will call the second job. And if you look at the second job, you should see that there is a execution and this was obtained from first job. But what happened to the value or the parameter that you want to pass to the second job? Now, this way, the first job just triggered the second job. And since you had set some default value, Jenkins was able to take the same default value as it is. So that way, what if a user wants to change this value. So it is not that you are calling first job and you are passing some parameter to the first job, but first job is not passing any parameter to the second job. So that's when, if in a downstream, if you want to call the downstream as well as you are going to pass some parameters, then how do you do? So that's where by default, Jenkins doesn't support triggering a parameterized downstream. Okay. Now for that, what you have to do, you have to first install a plugin. Now this is where anytime if you want to install a plugin, you should be going to manage Jenkins. Okay. So I'll just open a new tab. Manage Jenkins. Manage plugins. And let's go to available. And here search for parameterized. Okay. So you can see there is a plugin called Parameterized Trigger. So choose this and just go ahead and say install without restart. Okay. So can everyone go ahead and try to install this? Go to manage Jenkins, manage plugins, in available, search for parameterized trigger or just give parameter. It will show, choose this and click install without restart. Now you can see there are dependencies for that. So all those plugins, it will install one by one. And if you have choose restart, it will just restart at the end. So can you guys go and try it once? Quickly install that plugin. Okay, has everyone installed it? Okay. So now, once this plugin is installed, so now if you go back to first job and if you refresh this, okay, so now go to the post build action. Now I don't want this, so I can remove. Now try to add post build action. And in this, if you just scroll down, you should be seeing a new option called trigger parameterized build on other projects. So the default one was build other projects. So that means you are just calling a job. But now I'm going to call a job and pass some parameters. So when you click this, so the same, you're going to also get this option on what job that you want to call. However, here you are going to have different options. Okay. So once again, here you're going to choose the condition on when it wants to run, but what are the parameters that you want to pass? So this is where there are different methods in which you can pass the parameters. Okay. So let's see a couple of them. Now, first, when you try to give current build parameters, okay. So what do you mean by current build parameters? Whatever parameter that you have passed to this parent job will pass all the parameters and the same value that it has received to this downstream job. That is what we mean by current build parameters. So that way, what and all is first job receiving? If you go back and see this, so first job is receiving 3 parameters, right? So whatever the value that you have given, the first job will pass all the 3 parameters with the value that you have chosen to the second job. So that is what this current build parameters refer to. But when you are setting this option, then both the parent job and this child job, which is the second job, should have the same parameter, because what will be happening is, you can see second job will receive a parameter called day, but what is first job going to pass? First job is going to pass these 3. So that's when you use current parameters, first job will be able to pass, but only if there is a parameter matching with the name of the first job in the second job, you will be able to get the value. If not, the first job will not be able to pass. So that's where it's not mandatory that you should have all the 3 parameters there, but in the second job, if you have any parameter matching the same name, then that is what the first job will be passing the value. Now, just to check what I'll do quickly, I'll go here. Instead of the day, we will just change that to the same parameter name called my name. Okay. So here I'll say my name. So now what will happen? The second job also needs a parameter called my name, and this is what you are going to pass from the parent job or the first job. Okay. And in fact, here I'll once again change this. Forget about the day and I'll just change the value. Okay. So now what will happen? When I run the job, that is the first job will be calling the second job and it will be passing all the parameters. But in that, second job will receive only the string parameter called my name. And instead of Thursday, whatever you are passing, that is what it will be receiving. Okay. So this is how, if you want to pass the parameters that you have from the parent job to the child job in the same way or to the downstream job, you're going to choose that. So let me just try this now. And let's go here, refresh. Okay, so now when I call this, so what are the parameters we have passed? So first job has 3 parameters with values Adam and S name, but when you go to the second job, if you refresh, you go to the fifth one, you should see that the value for the parameter you have got is Adam, because this is what the parent job passed to the child job. Okay, so that's how what you can do. You can take the value from parent and exactly as it is, you can pass to the child. Suppose if you want all the parameters, then in the second job or the child job, you need to give all the different parameters. Okay, so this is where the first option, current build parameters, will work. But for this, you need to remember both the upstream and the downstream, or the parent and the child. So can you try it once? Just try running this option. First, make sure the plugin is installed, and then try to use current build parameters, and both the parent and the child job should have the same parameter. And then when you run, you can see you pass the value parameter to first job, and first job will pass the same parameters to the second job. Okay, so those who have tried, probably, do you want to take 10 minutes break? Am I audible? Yeah, sure. Those who have completed, I mean, it's fine. Go ahead and take a break. If not, we'll come back and see. Okay, but anyway, make sure everyone give a try, right? Yeah, take a 10 minutes break. I'll ping you again at 10:40. Is everyone back? Hey guys, is everyone back?
Hello,
Yes.
Adam. My second build is going in a for loop. When I trigger my first build, now my second build is going in a for loop, and it is building multiple times.
So can you share the screen?
Naren,
Okay, what did you do? Come down. Come down.
okay.
This is second job. Okay. Click on that. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Go back. Yeah.
Here or
Go
on
to
the back
post.
page?
No. Wait. Did you add anything new? Go to post build action. Yeah. What is that you have done here? From second job, you are calling second job again. So every time second job completes, second job is going to once again call second job. So there is no downstream for second job. No. You're not understanding the concept. I want first job to call second job. That's all.
You have to do this in first job.
Yes. Suppose if second job has to call something else, then you have to give here. Since you have mentioned second job calling second job, every time you run, it goes in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure. All others are able to run. Others? Okay, I'm not able to get any answer. So yeah, I believe everyone has tried it once, right? So to move on, the first option that I told you is whatever the parameters that you have on the first job, if you want to pass it as it is to the child job, then you can set this. But what if from the first job, you want to pass a different values to the parameters, then what you have to do is, here you need to use an option called predefined parameters. So when you say predefined, okay, so how will you give the value? So what you have to do here, line by line, for every parameter that you want to pass in the second job or to this job, whatever that you are calling, you need to give the parameter name equal to the value. For example, now the parameter that this second job needs is my name. Then you're going to give my name equal to and whatever the value that you want. Now either you can hard code it, okay? For example, if I put it like this, then every time when you are going to call, the first job will call the second job by setting the value for the parameter as students. So this way you're hard coding. But if you want dynamically to change, then you can append any other parameters that first job is taking along to it. Okay. For example, now I don't want to pass this, but we know that in this job, we have these three parameters. Suppose what I will do, instead of just passing it, I will just say dollar my name hyphen students. So then what will happen when second job is calling or the second job is being called, the value whatever that you have in the first job will be replaced, and to that it will append students, and this is what will be set as the parameter value for the second job. Okay, so this is how you will be able to pass, wherein you can hard code or you can dynamically change it during runtime depending on other parameters, which is what we call it as predefined parameter. So what's this? So when I call this job, so let the value be Adam. So I'll build it. So it would invoke the job. And now if you go back to second job, okay, and look at the latest build. So you can see the value of the parameter, it has replaced with the predefined value, where the first value it got it from the first job and it appended to students and it shared it. So what we can do is, from parent to child, when you are passing, you can pass a predefined value. Or it can be predefined by using another parameter's value. Okay. Getting it? So can you just quickly try this once and see how it is taking up the value? Okay. Everyone tried? Now, what we saw was two options. Now there is one more option where sometimes you don't have to hard code some values like this. Instead, you can ask Jenkins to read from a file. Okay. So instead of passing it like this, you can pass it as a file. So when the first job is passing some value to the second job, it can read from a file, and that file can contain some parameters. So what you can do is, instead of hard coding, you can automate your job in such a way it generates dynamically during runtime a file, and in that it will set some parameter, and that you can ask first job to read. Now for that, if you go ahead and use parameters from property file, okay, now it'll ask you what is the name of the file. Now just for sample, if I just say test.properties, now it's need not be a property file, it can be any text file. So I'm just giving a name called as test.properties. Now when Jenkins runs this first job, and after it completes the first job, it will try to read this file, and whatever the parameter is available, it will pass to the second job. Now, the question that will come is, from where will it come? Okay, or from where will it read this? So whatever the machine in which Jenkins is running this first job, it will try to check for this file in that same machine. And within that, in which folder it will check? It will always start looking from the remote root directory workspace / this folder with the name of first job. So that is the folder in which by default it will check. So you can give a relative path or an absolute path related to that folder only. So now when I run this, the first job will try to read whether in the same machine inside that folder, do you have this file? If it is available, it will read. So this is where what we can do is I can generate this file during runtime. Okay. So what I can do now, I'll just go to the build step, and in the build step, anything that I do here, if you understand, it will be part of the same Jenkins remote root directory workspace folder, correct? So obviously if I create a file here, it is going to be in the same folder. So that's when what we will do, I will create a file by setting this parameter, okay? And I'm just going to say my name equal to file, okay, or file param, so that you know that the value is being read from the file. And this is what I will put it as a content, and I will redirect to the file. So when you run this command, what will happen? You will get a file generated called test.properties inside the remote root directory workspace folder, and the content of it will be the property or the parameter name and the value. And this is what, when you run Jenkins in the downstream, will be reading over here. Okay, and that parameter, whatever you have set, will be received by the second job. Okay, so let's just run this. So I'll just try to run. So once it's complete, now if you go to second job, refresh. So you should have got 7th build or 7th execution. If you open that, do you see the value of the parameter is file param? Okay, this is because it read from the file. So this is how you can pass a parameter to a downstream in different ways. You can pass the same parameter or a predefined, or during runtime, the job can create a parameter and put it into some file, and that file Jenkins can read and pass. Okay, so can you just try this also quickly and check how it is working? So give a name here, and for that you just have to create the file exactly. Okay, so try this. Okay. Yeah. If you have tried, now let's move on to the next option. Now this is where what we saw is how in Jenkins you can call a parent and a child job, and how you can pass parameters from parent to child. Okay. Again, it's completely up to us to choose what are the different options that you want to run. Now, the basics that I told you was whenever you are trying to run a job, right? So Jenkins keeps a history by default. So if you see here, what happens, Jenkins has a history of all the executions of this job. So by default, all these things will be stored. Now, from where is it trying to pick? So all this output will be stored into your Jenkins home directory, which is nothing but the location where you have installed Jenkins under where lib Jenkins or C drive or D drive, what you have chosen, right? So what will happen now, as you keep creating multiple jobs and keep running multiple times, all the output, if it stores, then the performance of the Jenkins will come down, because what is that you are seeing here is just a web page. So it has to basically read the complete folder in the installation location of Jenkins, and then it is going to display. So that's where more jobs and more output, you will see that reading this page itself will be slow. So that's where you have to delete the previous output of the job which you don't need. Okay. Now for that, what you can do is, for every job, Jenkins has an option which is called as discard old builds. This is the very first option in the general. So when you click on this, what will happen? You have two ways to tell Jenkins to delete. That is, you can tell how many days that you want to keep the output of this job, or how many numbers of output that you want to keep. So the difference between this when to use is, assume you are trying to run some build like a nightly build, which will run once in a day or twice a day, or you are running something once in a week. Then for that, you can try to say, keep the output for 1 day, 2 day, or 1 week. So based on that, once the number of days is crossed, it will try to delete. But for some job like a CI job or a continuous integration job, where for every check-in I want to run, then in a day you might have 30, 40 executions. Then I cannot wait for 2 days or 3 days, because within 3 days there will be more than 100 to 200 numbers. So that's when you can go ahead and keep the number, and it will keep only that many latest output, and it will remove all the previous one. So for example, if I say 4, so going forward, when I run this job, only the latest 4 builds output it will keep. All the so you can see now it has deleted all the previous one, and it has kept only the latest 4. So if I again run it, you will get build 25, and based on that, it will delete the previous one. Okay. But anytime it will keep only the latest 4 outputs. So that is how you can keep it under control. Okay, so you can choose how many output that it should be keeping it, and what is that you want to see. So based on that, Jenkins will be tracking the history of only that many outputs. Okay. so far? Now, what is remaining? Now, this is where we were just trying to see what are the options you have in the general section, and when we saw the option of how do you specify a command or a task to run, and what is the post action that you can give. But what we have to explore next is SCM. So suppose if there is a job in which you need to clone a workspace from a SCM, which is nothing but it could be a Subversion or Git, then you are going to use this option. And by default, the only two options for the plugin which is available is Git. Suppose if you want to refer to a Subversion repo, then you have to install the plugin for SVN first, and then you're going to use this accordingly and give the data. Okay. So right now, when we installed the suggested plugins, the Git plugin was also one among them. Okay. So that's where now for any kind of activity, if I want Jenkins to connect to a version controlling system and it is going to execute a Git clone, then you are going to use this option. Okay. Now, before this, I believe everyone is familiar with the basics of Git, or I think the other day that we had shared the videos. So I hope everyone has gone through that videos. Okay. So is there anyone who doesn't know what is this, or everyone understands the basic of version controlling system? Okay, great if you know that. Fine. Now this is where what we will do is, now let's say I have some project available in the central repository. Now this way, it can be a GitHub or it can be a GitLab repository or a Bitbucket repository or whatever the internal tool you are using for central repository of Git. So assume to do some activity, if you want Jenkins to connect to that version controlling system and do a clone automatically, then you are going to use this option for that. Okay. Now to show this, what I'll do, now let me go to gitlab.com. Okay. Now this is where if you have an account already in github.com or gitlab.com, then you can go ahead and create a repo. If not, if you do not have an account, then let me just give you this path so you can just use this for practicing. Okay. So yeah, let me take this. Okay, I don't have anything. Okay, I don't have any projects. All right, what I'll do, I'll quickly create a project for you. Okay, probably. Okay, let me create and give it to you guys. Okay, so I just did a clone, and you should see a folder called Maven build. So I'll try to copy paste from another project and give you this. And okay, let me take this. Okay, so I have two workspaces. So let me go to my CI/CD project. Okay, here I'll copy sample 2. Okay, so let me go back. Okay, now this is one of a sample project where what I have done, I have pushed some file. Okay, so I have some sample code for Java, and in which I have a sample set of unit test code and source code, and I have a Maven form.xml which I can use to do the builds. So that way, if I run a build on the sample jar folder, it will create a jar file as a deliverable. The same way, I have a folder called sample bar, in which I have the source code and the Maven form.xml, using which when I run the build, it will be creating a var file for me as an output. Now again, once again, I believe if you haven't gone through the videos, please go through that Git and Maven videos for you to get a basic understanding. Okay. Now, this is my project. Now what I'll do, I'll just make sure all you guys have access to it. So I'll just make it public. Okay, so now this is a repository wherein we have some source code. Now, to do some work, instead of me going to a machine and doing a clone like how I showed you here, git clone and typing, this command, at any time, if I want Jenkins to do this clone automatically, then we have to use this SEM tab. Now for that, I can choose clone and I'll take this URL and let's go back to our job. And in this job, I will click on this Git because right now we are using a Git repository. And this is where you are going to give your central repositories URL. Okay. And paste it. Now, however, if you have a credential that you want to pass, then you can give. But as of now, I have made it public for you to practice. So that way you don't need to give a username and password. Now, by giving this option, what is Jenkins going to do? Before running the build step, remember the first thing Jenkins will do is it will be doing a clone and then it will be running the build step. Okay, so this is where, remember this, the SEM step runs first in the freestyle job. So when I run this job, first thing what Jenkins will do is Jenkins will try to check whether there is a clone available. If there is no clone available, Jenkins will connect to this URL and it will try to do a git clone. And only after it completes the clone, it will be executing whatever the build step that you have given. Okay, so let's say apply. Now, even though it has parameters, it doesn't matter. Now, when I run this job, let it build. But quickly, if you go to the output, and if you see, you can see that the first thing that it is trying to do is it is trying to do a clone because there is no clone currently available. So that's where Jenkins will internally run the git clone command and it will be creating the workspace with this location. And once it is completed, then it will go ahead and start executing whatever the remaining steps that you have given. Okay, so remember that. So every time when you run Jenkins, it will try to clone automatically. So that's where you can use this workspace if you want to do a CI build or a nightly build or a full build or a release build, whatever that you want to automate, you can do. But the next question that comes is, where has it done the clone? Because when I did a clone here, if you look at this command prompt, so I went into a folder called D drive git and then I did the clone. So the same way, when you are asking Jenkins to do the clone, where is this new workspace created? Now this workspace is created under remote root directory workspace. Okay, so that is where if you now go to this folder, you will be able to see the same folder structure what you have in this project, which is nothing but this two folders and these two files. Now to cross check, I don't have to go to machine, but we know that there is something called as a workspace. So if you just go back and click on this workspace, then what will happen? You can see now the Jenkins has created the clone under the remote root directory folder, and in that you can see it has created the clone of all this file. So now if you are trying to do a build or if you are trying to do some test, it will be very easy because you don't have to do the clone. The clone is already available and you don't even have to tell Jenkins to go to this folder and run some Maven command or run some test or run some script, because anything that you give inside your build step, okay, where will it refer? It will refer to the same remote root working directory, isn't it? And that is the default location, whatever you give in this will run. And that is the same location where Jenkins has also SEM. What you can do is Jenkins will automatically clone the project and it will go to the same folder, and that is where it is going to run everything. So it is going to be very simple, where all you have to tell is what SEM repo it is and what is that commands that you want to run, which could be a build or it could be some test for deployment. So you don't have to tell what to clone and you don't have to tell where it should go. All you have to tell is where is your repo and what commands to run, and all of them will be executed in the same folder. Okay. Now, before we move further, can you quickly check this? and try giving. So this is the URL. I'll put it in the chat. You can just use it. So try setting up the SEM option to this and try to run and see how Git or how Jenkins automatically uses Git to do the clone, and the workspace is available in the remote root directory. So can you try that?
Hello, Adam. Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sometime, but they are using public key and private key for cloning. Now, in real life scenario, we will not get a public thing, public repository thing. Then at that time, what we have to do?
You have to give credentials. I'll show you. I just told you here, right? You need to add credentials. As of now, I am giving my repository. So that's the reason I don't want to share my repository with credentials. Instead, I made it public. But in the organization, when you're cloning, you can use your own token or credentials, and using that, you will be able to clone the private repo.
Can you please share this link once again on chat? It was not.
Yeah, I've just shared it.
Thanks.
I think since you're using master, which is your Windows machine, and in the Windows looks like you have installed Jenkins on C Windows drive, you are not able to clone. So this is the problem that yesterday we were facing, right? So what's happening is under C Windows System 32, you can see that is what is your remote root directory, and under that, when Jenkins is trying to run the git clone, it's giving you an error. Can you try doing the clone directly from your machine? Forget about Jenkins. Open the command prompt, go to the same folder, and then try to run git clone and see if that is working. I'm saying, can you open a command prompt on your machine, go to the same folder whatever is trying to show, then can you just try to do a git clone command directly and see if it is working? That's what I'm saying. Browser you will be able to access, but look at the error. The error is Jenkins is not able to clone because you don't have access to that folder. Whatever that it is showing, right? The Windows system file you're using. So the problem is you have installed Jenkins in the wrong location. So can you install Jenkins in some other folder where you have access and you point to a remote directory where you have access? So the problem what you have is you have installed Jenkins on C Windows folder, and in the remote directory by default is the location what it's showing under .jenkins, and Jenkins is trying to do a, you're using master, so it is doing folder and trying to do a clone where new folder creation is not happening, it is giving you error. So either try to change your so either you change the machine or you change the location of where you installed some other folder, then it will work. Others, have you tried it once? Okay, cool. Others? To run this? Any issues? Okay. So everyone able to run, right? Cool. So now let us try to set up a job. Now this is where if I go back to okay, the Jenkins. So now I was telling you the main purpose that we created Jenkins was to support different builds. But however, it is not limited only to that. You can use Jenkins to run any kind of job that you want. But let's say now I want Jenkins to run some nightly build. Okay. So what do you mean by nightly build? So exactly at some point of time, I want Jenkins to connect to a particular machine, and in that machine, it should clone the workspace and take the latest code, and then go through a series of command called compilation and packaging, okay, and then generate a deliverable, which is jar or var. So this is going to be a simple step where I want to set up a nightly job. So with what we have learned, now how do you set up this? Now I have a machine available, which is what we have created as a group. And at the same time, we also have the repository in which source code is available. But what is the remaining things we have to do? So first, we need to configure the machine so that in that machine, we have all those things which is needed to run our build. So basically, that is going to be your JDK, because for building a Java code, you need JDK as well as a tool like Maven. Okay, so we need to install these two on this particular machine. Now, how do you do that? Now, that's where now it depends on what is the type of machine that we're going to use. So okay, so I'm going to show you both the ways, and I want you to kind of try out, because this is where it's easy.
So voice is not audible.
Now, what is the remaining thing you need is am I audible now?
Yes.
Hello. Okay, so what I'm saying, since for those who are using your own Windows machine or the Jenkins master to act as your build machine, now you already have JDK 1.8 installed. So the only thing you need is you need Maven to be available, correct? Now for that, what you can quickly do is try to download Maven. So wait just 1 minute, looks like a network glitch. Okay, so if you go to this Apache Maven download page, okay, so since you are going to work on Windows, what you can do is you download this zip file, which is binary zip archive. Okay, download this and extract to a folder where you have access, like D drive. Please don't do it on the default C drive downloads folder. So download it to some location and extract it to a particular folder like D drive. Okay, all I want you to do is this. Okay, extract and download this and extract it to a particular folder like D drive where you have access. Okay, so this is what you are going to do. But the same thing, suppose if you are in Linux box, then same way you can try to download it to a particular location in Linux. So what you can simply do, if I take this copy link, right, I can go to this Linux machine. Now, since I'm using this AWS machine, or for those who are using your VM, then let's connect to that. Okay, so I'll connect to the slave machine. Okay, network is bad.
Hello, Adam. We have to install this on master, na?
Not master, or whatever machine you are going to use to run. So in case you don't have any other machine, you have installed Jenkins on your laptop, then your laptop is going to act as the machine for you. So you're going to directly do it on that. But for me, in real time, like I said, I have a different machine, and that is the machine in which I want to do the build. So I'm trying to install Maven on that machine. Got it?
Yes, sir.
So I'm just going to copy this address. And now on this machine, I am under home Ubuntu. Okay, so I'll just say wget and download this. Okay, so I have downloaded this file. So you have the zip available. Okay, now I just have to unzip, but let me just quickly check whether I have unzip available. So it's not there. So I'll go ahead and do an apt install unzip. Now for you, you're using Windows, then just go ahead and unzip to a folder where you have access. Sudo apt update and sudo apt install unzip. Okay, so now I have unzip. So what I'll do, I'll just say unzip and this zip file. Okay, now because of this, I have a folder created. Okay, so if you can see the screen now, there is a folder created. The same way, if you have downloaded it to your laptop, you would have created a folder extracting the zip file. Okay, now if you go inside this folder, okay, so you should see something like bin, conf, lib, all those things should be available. And if you do a pwd, so you can see this is the folder where I have extracted Maven. Okay, so similar to this, in case if you have extracted into D drive in your Windows, then your D drive Apache Maven 382 is the folder where Maven is available. And this is what we call it as Maven home directory. Okay, now what you need to do is you need to set a environment variable which will be pointing to this particular location. So that's where what I want you to do is I want you to set an environment variable called m2 home, which is nothing but this. So you should be setting an environment variable called m2 underscore home, and that points to this location corresponding to this in your Windows, whatever the location you have. And now who needs this? Jenkins needs this. So that is where now what you have to do is now I have to go back to the Jenkins, and in the Jenkins I want to set this environment variable to the machine, right? So that's where I'll go to manage Jenkins, manage nodes, and click on this. And in this, the node that I'm talking about is build machine 1. Okay, so here, click, go to configure. Now under this, I want to set up the environment variable. So come down and choose environment variable, and here add an environment variable and say m2 underscore home and give this location. So that is where whenever Jenkins connects to this machine, it will be knowing an environment variable called m2 home, in which it knows the location of where Apache Maven is available, which is the home directory. So this is one environment variable you have to set. The same way, you have to set one more variable, which is the path variable. Because in OS, if you type some command, only when the path variable is set, it will be able to pick up on where Maven is. So for that, what you have to do, whatever the existing path variable is already there, you should take it. And along with that, I will append this location of m2 home. And inside that, there is a bin folder where the Maven executable is available, which is nothing but here. So if I current path, you can see this is the path available. Because now, for example, I'll just show you. If I type which Maven, it doesn't know, because Maven executable is not available in this location. Where is it available? It is in fact available inside this /bin. There is the executable. So that's where now I'll just show you to set here. So if I just set path equal to $path, okay, and colon this location /bin. Now the path variable has this new location, and because of that, when you run Maven, the Maven command is identified. So that's how you need to add the path specific to the location. And that is where what I'm doing. Anyway, we have already set an environment variable called m2 home, which points until the home directory. So I will just append this by saying m2 home/bin. Then Jenkins will be able to know where exactly is the Maven executable when it is running after connecting to this machine. So this is the path variable that you're going to set in here. So I will add another and I will say path. And this is where now what we will do is either you can say $path and add. If not, to be on a safer side, if I come down, this is my path variable, right? So I will add this completely. Okay. So basically, I just want to add this full path as it is. Okay. So that is what I'm going to do. So now when Jenkins connects to this machine, it will use this path variable where we have already told where is the Maven location. So anytime when Jenkins connects to this machine, it will also know where is the Maven path available, which is under this. So these are the two variables that you have to set. Okay. Now this is for the Linux machine where I have a separate node. But what is that you are going to do? Because you don't have a node now, you're using the master. Then what you have to do is you have to go to the configure system page. That is, go to Jenkins, manage Jenkins and configure. And if you remember, I told you anything globally that you want to set for the master, you are going to do it under the configure system. Okay. So over here, if you come down, there is an environment variable. So here I want you to add m2 home and you give your Windows path location. Same way, add another variable called path and append the path variable and give the full location here that has the Apache Maven folder /bin. And after that, when you run Jenkins, Jenkins will be able to know where is the Maven location available. Okay. So for Windows users, and again, when I say Windows, if you are using your laptop itself, you should be going to the configure system and under that set the environment variables. If you are using a VM and there is a Linux VM, then you should directly add it as a machine, and under the machine, you're going to give the environment variable, which is here. Getting it? Now, once you try to set this, just to cross check whether you have set everything properly, all I want you to do is try to create a new job. Okay. Now, I'll not do anything as of now. I'll just create it as nightly build. Okay. I'm just giving it as nightly build. Please time. Okay. Now I'll tell where this has to run. So I'll go to restrict where to run. So here I'll say use my demo group. Okay. And under the build, all I will tell is run this command called which Maven. Okay. Or I'm just going to say Maven version. So if Maven is picked up properly, then Jenkins should be able to run this command. If not, it should give me an error. So let's just try that. So I'll just try to save and run. So if I come back, you can see it is able to successfully run the Maven command and it is giving me the version. So that means whatever that environment variable I have set, Jenkins is able to pick it properly and it knows where Maven is available. Okay. So can you guys go ahead and do that now? Extract the Maven zip, and that location is what you're going to add it as m2 home and add the path variable. Now, if you're using your laptop, then do it under configure system, manage Jenkins, configure system. Okay. If not, if it's a VM, then on a specific machine, you're going to do it under the machine configure. But these are the two which you need to add. Add it and then set up a job and just run Maven version command and see whether it is actually picking up. Can you try that? Let me know if anyone has any issues.
भेजता हूँ।
Okay, Hemal, can you set the path correctly? So what you do is open your command prompt. I think you're using Windows. That's the problem. So open the command prompt in Windows. Okay. And then just type echo %path %, and you will get this completely. Okay. So what I want you to do is take this complete location and, like as told, take this location, and to this you add whatever the location that you have your Maven extracted, and then :bin. So you take this location, whatever that you're taking here, okay, and that go ahead and add it to your path variable here. Okay, so once you do that, you will be moving away from this error. So it looks like you have not set the path variable. That's the reason. Yeah. Others, are you able to do or problems? Hey, there's some background noise. I'm not sure who's that. Can you go on mute, please? Hey, anyone else tried or anyone else facing issues? Okay, fine. I think it's silently, things are working fine. Yeah, for those like someone who's using Windows. So again, I'm repeating, try to take your path variable from Windows and append your directory where you have Maven extracted /bin folder, and that is what you are going to give it under system configuration. Okay, so that's the only change. Anyway, fine. If things are working fine and there's no question, then let us stop the session today. Okay, and we'll resume with the remaining things tomorrow. Any last questions or? No questions? Okay, cool, if it worked. Okay, sure guys. Thank you then. Let me stop the session today. We'll resume it with the remaining things tomorrow. Have a good day. Thank you.